All right. Hello, hello. I hope all is well. For some reason, my laptop was like, yeah, I ain't trying to work today. Like, so I am on my phone again. Don't mind me. I'm playing with filters. The way my way everything is set up here. Okay. All right. I hope all is well with everyone today. Definitely let me know in the comments. I want to know where you are watching from. And for some reason, I can't see comments. Oh, now I see them. Hi, how are you? Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome in. I'm going to be talking about, what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about fighting frustrating and stressful days. I actually kind of had a frustrating and stressful day today. Um, so this was the reason why I kind of like decided to talk about this today. Um, okay, my laptop's back up. Yes, Kiki. Thank you so much for joining today. Um, my laptop's coming back up just a second as I get our affirmations. But yeah, today has just been kind of like, it wasn't like a bad day, but it was just like a lot of things happening at one time. Um, and just things kind of just not going. Oh, okay, good. So this is perfect for you. So I just kind of wanted to take the time to one, encourage myself, and in the meantime, since we're already having our live tonight, encourage you guys. Let me get hopefully my music will play again now as I get everything back up. My laptop, see, again, frustrating and stressful day. My laptop died in the middle of me going live, so I had to switch over to my phone. There we go. All right. So we have 8 affirmations tonight. Feel free to write them down however it's true to you. So if you feel like some of the affirmations you want to change some of the words, or if it makes it more sense for you, or it sounds more in your voice, feel free to do that. Write them down however you want to use them. And if you have any affirmations that you think of that you want to add, feel free to drop them in the comments. But yeah, I'm going to jump into the first one. Let me get this up here. So the first one is, I have the power to turn this day around. One event doesn't define the day. I have the power to turn this day around. One event doesn't define the day. So understanding that just because one bad, stressful thing happened doesn't mean that the rest of your day has to go that way. I can't even imagine how many times I've started my day where everything was just going wrong. I woke up late. I didn't have enough time to like really shower the way that I want to. It was one of those quick showers. Then my hair ain't acting right. Then, something happens with the car and the car don't start. Like there's so many things that will happen to where it could mess up the rest of your day, right? The rest of the day just could not go right. But a lot of times we have ourselves in that moody, frustrated mindset, and we stay there and we don't allow ourselves to process how we're feeling. And so that's the reason more so of us continuing the day without with it being just a frustrating and stressful and crazy day, versus it being a one separated event that's happened that doesn't have to dictate the rest of the day. So that affirmation is just a reminder to say, I have the power to turn this day around. One event doesn't define the day. Number 2, I acknowledge my feelings and give myself space to feel frustrated. I acknowledge my feelings and give myself space to feel frustrated. So a lot of times we find ourselves overly frustrated because we're not giving ourselves to space to acknowledge how we're feeling the first go round. So when we have those frustrating and stressful days, it's usually a pile up, right? It's usually a pile up of several things that happen either at once or throughout the course of the day. And if we just take a second to allow ourselves to, one, acknowledge that we're feeling a certain way, and then two, give ourselves space to actually process that feeling, it will alleviate not alleviate it completely, but it can definitely help alleviate the frustration, to the point where it doesn't pile up and then you're just completely stressed and burned out by the end of the day. So I acknowledge my feelings and give myself space to feel frustrated. Number 3, I am in control of my reactions and choose peace over frustration. I am in control of my reactions and choose peace over frustration. That's really just a reminder to choose and pick your battles. Sometimes we get overly frustrated because we're trying to fight every battle that comes our way. And that's a part of the frustration. But if we choose, to fight the battles that are priority, put in the energy to the ones that matter the most, and let go of the other ones, that will help us also maintain our levels of stress and frustration. Sometimes we find ourselves overly stressed or overly frustrated because we're trying to take on more than what we can, handle within a given day. And taking the time to delegate to other people, or taking the time to mitigate situations to where it doesn't necessarily have to even be this whole drawn out thing, just finding a solution, even if the solution isn't ideal. And that's one of the affirmations. We'll get to that in a minute. But taking the time to choose your battles is where you're able to find peace, because you'll never find peace if you're trying to fight every issue or every problem that pops up that isn't necessarily meant for you to fight. Okay? So I am in control of my reactions and choose peace over frustration. Number 4, I hope these are helpful. Number 4, I release my frustration and embrace a calm, positive mindset. I release my frustration and embrace a calm, positive mindset. So we talked about understanding our power. We talked about acknowledging our feelings and our emotions, but we have to also release it, right? So if we don't take the time to acknowledge and accept and understand how we're feeling, but if we don't take the time to actually release those things, there is no space for calmness. There is no space for a positive mindset. So we can't forget to release how we're feeling, because that's a crucial part in order to accept the peace, to accept the positive mindset, to accept joy, to accept gratitude. Those things will not come if there's no room. And the only way that we release is by, again, acknowledging and accepting, so that way we can go ahead and release and then allow room for the positivity. Sometimes we are frustrated because there's no room for positivity. There's no room for optimism. There's no room for solutions. There's just a room for complaints, frustration, stress, resentment, bitterness. There's only room for that. So making sure to release those feelings, those emotions, those frustrations, and taking the time to do that, whether it be with your breath work, whether that be with meditation. I just released the deep gratitude meditation, which is great for situations like this, where a lot of times we find ourselves frustrated because we're forgetting the bigger picture. We're forgetting purpose. We're forgetting why we are where we are. And being able to practice gratitude and meditation and breath work is what is how we take the time to release those feelings and emotions. So that one was I release my frustration and embrace a calm, positive mindset. We have to be intentional. We have to be intentional about it, and we have to make a conscious effort to do that shift and change. Number 5, I am capable. Yes, I am capable of finding solutions even if they are not the most ideal. I am capable of finding solutions even if they are not the most ideal. Sometimes we remain in our frustration, in that frustrating state of mind, because we know the outcome of that particular situation is not going to be in our favor, or it's not going to be 100% in our favor, or we know that we're going to have to compromise, or we know that we're going to have a hard or tough conversation. So we stay in our frustrated state so that way we don't have to deal with it or handle it or have that conversation. So a lot of times we find ourselves overly frustrated because we're unable to relinquish control, whether it be control of a situation, control of another person's actions. And that's why we're finding ourselves stressed and frustrated, or we're not wanting to compromise. So understand, and this is just a reminder, that I am capable of finding solutions even if they are not the most ideal. If they're not the most ideal for you, that's okay. It's still a solution. And the reason why you're frustrated, or you may be frustrated, is because you don't want to release the control to that actual solution. So that might be a hard pill to swallow, but if you find yourself easily frustrated or often frustrated, you may have to take the time to take a step back and see if your frustration is linked to you wanting to control a scenario or not wanting to compromise. If it's even go as far as if it's something that you're being selfish about, or thinking through those things. Is a little bit of shadow work there, but that's really what that's gearing towards. And I found myself in those situations too, where I find myself the most angry or the most frustrated in situations that I'm trying to control. And if we let go of that control and allow things and chips to fall where they fall, it will alleviate, not necessarily get rid of the frustration, but it may alleviate the pressure of it. So I am capable of finding solutions even if they are not the most ideal. Next one. I trust that this frustration is temporary and embrace each new day with gratitude. Yes, surrendering. Yes. Surrendering, acceptance. Those are the things that when we're not processing or not practicing that surrender or that acceptance is why we're frustrated. And sometimes you don't necessarily see the link of me surrendering or me having to give up something as it being linked to your frustration, but it is. A lot of times we're just overly frustrated because we just won't let stuff go, you know? Where was I at? Yes, I trust that this frustration is temporary and embrace each new day with gratitude. I trust that this frustration is temporary and embrace each new day with gratitude. So understanding not just frustration, but emotions in general are fleeting. They ebb and flow. They're temporary. They are not permanent. and they also don't always hold true to what's happening in a situation, right? So our frustration could be based off of our perception of a situation, not necessarily what's actually happening. So a lot of times we're operate or move off of that frustration, and then find out down the line that that wasn't the case. That really wasn't what it was, and end up having a new flow of emotions because of that, whether it be shame or guilt or embarrassment or hurt or pain. So that frustration, that false frustration leads to real emotions that are off of a false situation. You know what I mean? So understanding that you can trust that your frustration is temporary. Give yourself time to process it. Give yourself time to evaluate what's happening and let go of the things that are perceived, and just deal with the fact. And then embrace a new day with gratitude. Again, shifting your mindset to gratitude, to understand that, even with that mindset, and even though it may be a stressful or crazy situation, gratitude, or finding gratitude, whether it be in that situation or conflict, or just outside of it, to be able to help you process and let go of that feeling or emotion. So I trust that this frustration is temporary, and embrace each new day with gratitude. Next one. I am patient with myself and others as I work through my frustrations. I am patient with myself and others as I work through my frustrations. So sometimes when we have a stressful or frustrating day, we add to that by not being mindful of how we're treating ourselves and how we're treating others when we're feeling that way. So a lot of times we find ourselves we're overly stressed, overly frustrated, angry, and you're just trying to get home to get to the end of the day. How we treat ourselves, if we're not treating ourselves with self-compassion, that adds to our frustration, because we're now beating ourselves up because of the day, and we're beating ourselves up based off of how we feel. Like, we get mad at ourselves for being overly emotional or overly frustrated, so then we add to that frustration by beating ourselves up about it. Or we lash out on other people, which then causes more conflict, and then that conflict adds to the frustration. So it ends up being a spiral or a trickle effect of, this one situation frustrated me. Now I'm feeling this way. And because I'm feeling this way, I'm mad at myself for feeling this way. And now that I'm mad at myself for feeling this way, I'm going to take it out on the people that I love or the people that are around me, which then therefore adds and creates more frustrating situations. I hope this makes sense. So it just all is linked together. And if we would have went back to the top and actually dealt and processed the emotions from that first frustrating situation, the trickle effect wouldn't have happened throughout the rest of the day. So this is very important. It's hard to do, because even within myself, if I find myself really frustrated or stressed, a lot of things around me then now adds to that stress. So you have to make sure to process it. Processing doesn't have to be a long, drawn out thing. It could just be simply to say, okay, Debbie, you are super frustrated right now. Let's take a step back, give yourself 5 minutes to walk away and process, do some breath work, do something, and then come back. Just by simply doing that action could change the course of the day. But not doing that means, okay, Debbie, you're frustrated, but I got work to do. I don't have time. And continue to do that throughout the rest of the day is why it piles up so much and piles up so quickly, versus giving myself literally 5 minutes to process how I was feeling. So yes, I am patient with myself and others as I work through my frustrations. And then last but not least, I tune into my emotions, letting them guide me towards what I truly need. I tune into my emotions, letting them guide me towards what I truly need. This is more so for those who find themselves easily frustrated, right? So if we find ourselves easily frustrated, that means we are neglecting a piece of ourselves, and it's an indication of something else. Okay. So if you find yourself easily frustrated, whether it be just the way somebody breathes, just somebody talking to you in general, just like if you find yourself just overly or easily frustrated, it's an indication that you're not frustrated, not necessarily frustrated by the situation or the thing that you're dealing with. There's something underlining, there's something underneath the surface that you still have to deal with. So taking the time to understand that, and then also taking the time to understand that our emotions, and we sometimes have to change our mindset surrounding this. Our emotions are not something for us to be afraid of, right? Sometimes we're afraid of our anger, or we're afraid of our sadness, or we're afraid of our fear, or we're afraid of the imposter syndrome, or we're afraid of all of these things. And we have to change how we think about that. Our emotions are teachers. They teach us about ourselves, and they teach us of how we interpret and perceive the people around us. So when we think about how we're feeling or why we're feeling an emotion, often it's most likely our bodies and our mind telling us that there's a need or there's something that's lacking. So for instance, or for example, when I went through my therapy, one of the things that I took from it and decided that I wanted to implement on a consistent basis is to work through why I had a hard time regulating my emotions and what emotions I struggled with the most. So, what I did is I got a piece of paper. I wrote down all of the emotions that you can experience, and you can make this a very in depth list or just a simple one with maybe 5 or 6 emotions. And then I starred the emotions that I felt that I experienced the most. The ones that I experienced the most was anger and anxiety. And then I journaled why I felt like I experienced these emotions to the most over all of the other emotions. The other one was sadness. And what I found was, for instance, with anger, my when I felt myself angry, well, for one, anger is always a secondary emotion. It's never going to be the primary emotion. Usually, you experience anger because you're experiencing a different emotion. So, like, if you experience pain or hurt, then you become angry. If you experience grief or sadness, then you become angry. So it's never anger is never just like the initial emotion. But I was finding myself angry all of the time because of the fact that I was I really wanted to control the things around me. And the situations that I found myself the most angry were the situations that I had no control over, right? So understanding it about yourself, because it's different depending on each person, but understanding why you feel these emotions the most and what emotions are the hardest for you to regulate and what they're linked to is what will help you with your frustration and stress. Because we find ourselves frustrated and stressed the most when we're not able to regulate our emotions in that particular scenario. So, one, understand what emotions that you're experiencing the most, what difficult emotions that you're experiencing the most, and then why you're experiencing them and what situations you find yourself experiencing them the most. Knowing that and understanding that will help you in changing how you respond to situations that frustrate you or stress you out. Um, if you Google emotion, it gives you multiple words to describe what you might be feeling if you're at a loss for words. Yeah, like if you Google, just Googling different types of emotions and looking up synonyms and antonyms of different emotions just to kind of see like what different words pop up will give you a good indicator. For me, one of the words that doesn't one of the emotions that popped up a lot for me that I didn't think of at first was embarrassment. Like if I feel like I'm embarrassed, it links for me to a lot of other different emotions that I experienced that I didn't realize that I experienced. I hate being embarrassed. I don't want to be embarrassed. So my embarrassment may link to sadness, or my embarrassment, and the embarrassment may not even be a justified embarrassed. Like, it's like, why are you embarrassed about that? But I get embarrassed about this by the simplest or the smallest things. So understanding that about yourself and seeing like what these emotions that pop up, that you're like, you know what, I do feel that a lot often, or that does pop up a lot for me, and taking the time to understand that will help you in those frustrating and stressful days, because usually those really high frustrating and stressful days are linked to those emotions. One thing that I don't like, that also creates, it gives me a very high anxiety level, but then also gives me very high stress, is when, and I guess this is kind of linked into embarrassment now that I think about it too, is when I'm in a workplace and I'm told to do something a certain way and I do it in that way and then find out that way was not the right way. Like that literally makes me so mad and frustrated. But I guess it does link to embarrassment, because now I'm embarrassed by the fact that I thought I was doing something the right way. It wasn't the right way. I went gung ho on it, whether it be in a meeting or in a conversation with someone, like, this is the way that it's supposed to be. And then later find out that that's not the way it's supposed to be. That is the most frustrating and annoying thing that happens to me with work. So me understanding that about myself helps me prepare for situations like that, and helps me to understand, okay, Debbie, now you know that this is something that bothers you, that frustrates you. This is a time where you may need to practice more self-compassion, or you may have to give yourself grace in these areas, or you may have to practice acceptance sooner than later in this situation, so that way you don't get overly frustrated. So the more you understand yourself and know yourself and understand your emotions, understand what your pain points are, what frustrates you and stresses you out the most in different scenarios. So that was just like a work thing, but understanding, your personal things will help you in understanding your stress levels and why they're so high. For personal, understanding your love language is one thing, but not just your love language, but your communication styles, because everybody has different communication styles. So understanding, if you're a person that, or even understanding how you deal with difficult situations. Some people retreat. They have to go away and process and then come back and have a conversation. Other people have to have the conversation right away and then go process the conversation and then come back and resolve. So understanding your communication styles, what is comfortable for you, if you are an introvert versus an extrovert. Just understanding those things, those different quirks about yourself, will help you in understanding your stress levels and frustrations. And so when these situations pop up, you know what to do, and you have coping mechanisms in place. You have things that you can do to help calm yourself down or help you process the emotions. A lot of times we just go through life just kind of winging it, but actually being strategic and understanding who we are and those very nuances and details about ourselves will help us in those day-to-day scenarios. Gung ho, yes, definitely value being a resource, because we're conditioned to feel like our intellect is defined by being the most knowledgeable in the room. There's no more vulnerability in the workplace anymore, or reasonable honesty. Yeah, yes, exactly. And I think that accepting and understanding that will help you with your frustration with work. If you find yourself at work, and I had to actually say this to someone recently, is like, we can't expect everybody to work like we do, right? So a lot of times we'll go into situations when it comes to work, and we expect people to approach their work the same way that we do, and then when they don't, we get frustrated. So that's something you have to accept. Everybody's not going to approach their job the way that I would approach my job. Everybody has different learning styles. Some people need to have things repeated more often than others. Understanding that we're just and just to kind of piggyback off of the original point, is that we sometimes think of ourselves as a main character in a story when it comes to our life. And it's when we're going through life, it's just a bunch of main characters trying to make one big story, right? So sometimes we have to remind ourselves that sometimes we're not the main character. Sometimes we're a supporting actress. Sometimes we're an extra. Sometimes we're, we're behind the camera. Sometimes we're just on the production team, right? So we just have to like take the time to take a step back, that not everybody's going to operate the way that we do. Not everybody's going to perceive things the way that we perceive them. Not everybody has ill intent, but assuming that everyone has a good intent brings us peace, and it allows us to not, yes, an extra. Sometimes we are an extra, okay, in a scenario or situation, and we have to think of it that way. Because if you think we have a whole bunch of main characters in one story, what kind of story are you going to have, right? We have to understand that we have to play our parts in different scenarios, and a lot of times we find ourselves easily frustrated or stressed when we are taking ourselves out of our position, when we're taking ourselves out of the extra position or out of the supporting actor or actress position and putting ourselves in the main character when we're not supposed to at that moment. So just understanding that our stresses and frustrations come from so many different ways that don't necessarily have to deal with the actual situation that we're dealing with. Sometimes we deal with situations or respond to situations based off of our trauma, right? So we're not even responding to the situation at hand based off of what's happening in front of us. We're responding to what that situation is triggering. And because we didn't take the time to process that trauma, and because we didn't take the time to evaluate that through therapy and really understand where that trauma came from and all of that, we're now reacting to things in present day based off of stuff that happened 10, 15 years ago. So there's so many nuances to why we experience stress and frustration with situations. But if you find yourself constantly stressed every day, constantly frustrated every day, that is an indicator, again, back to the beginning when we're talking about our emotions are our teachers and teach us about ourselves. That's an indicator that there's something more than just this particular situation. That's kind of just thinking about when people get into these road rage fights and when people get into these like petty, like crazy things. It's never really about those situations. It's always about something else. So just taking the time to understand your emotions, your frustrations, your stress, and really evaluate and even journal what your emotions, are telling you, will help you in your day-to-day frustrations and stress. Okay? So I hope this is helpful. We went through all 8. I'll run through them quickly. From the top, I have the power to turn this day around. One event doesn't define the day. I acknowledge my feelings and give myself space to feel frustrated. I am in control of my reactions and choose peace over frustration. I release my frustration and embrace the calm, positive mindset. I am capable of finding solutions even if they are not the most ideal. I trust that this frustration is temporary and embrace each new day with gratitude. I am patient with myself and others as I work through my frustrations. I tune into my emotions, letting them guide me towards what I truly need. So I definitely hope these are helpful. Hello, Eli. How are you? I hope these affirmations are helpful. This is going to be saved, so you'll be able to go back and watch these, watch this back if you need to kind of sit down and write down these affirmations. This live is every Monday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, so we will be back next Monday. I believe, I'm not quite sure what we're talking about next week. I did frustration and stress today, but we'll definitely we'll probably dive into intuition or something next week. So definitely come back. I appreciate you all. I hope you enjoyed the gratitude meditation that was posted yesterday. If not, definitely take the time to do it. It's a 15-minute one, but it's a really good one, especially if you find yourself frustrated or anything stressed. Definitely will help with that too. But yeah, make sure you guys talk back to me within these lives. I really want to hear from you guys, hear how things are going. But other than that, I will see you all next week at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hopefully I don't have any more issues with with pulling things up. Make sure you like this live, share it if you know anybody that can use any help with affirmations. And until next time, you all have a great rest of your night, and I will see you all soon. Bye.